is the assessment, and it's an overall increase of $273,647.
And what percentage would that
That's-
represent?
That's a 6% increase on our assessment, and that's an 8% increase on the total town's assessment. So our share dropped a little bit, 0.1%. Kingston and Plimpton had about 0.9% change. So Plimpton's going up, Kingston's dropping. So
So what's the Halifax number?
the Halifax,
Increase.
273,000.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
the six.
$674. So at the meeting, I briefly spoke, and I said that I would not recommend anything more than $150,000 for the assessment increase,
Can I ask how you went on that number?
because it's 3%. I was sitting next to Kim and doing the math. I was just double checking at the meeting. So that was a 3% number to Halifax. It actually represents a little more than 3% to the total town's assessment. So we plug in that number, and we plug in to the total budget, includes all the lines with all the possible revenue. So when we're talking about revenue increases for this fiscal year, 2.5%, what we can go up on, is from what we could spend last year total, and we didn't spend to the levy limit last year. So last year we did not spend $601,000. $601,000. So that's excess capacity when we talk about that. Prop 2.5 was $390,000. And we have a new growth number, which, did you decrease that?
Yeah, I dropped it to 100,000.
Okay,
I talked with the principal assessor, she feels we'll be lucky to reach it.
I talked to John Chavone, and he said he didn't think that they would hit 75,000 after talking with Holly.
She thought we will be lucky if we get 100,000. That's, I asked her if she got to put that in, she said probably.
So do you have that on this sheet? So you changed that to 100,000. Okay. So,
I do think it's something we're gonna have to keep our eye on.
Okay.
And we'll have to discuss with the assessors again,
okay.
especially if we're getting two different messages.
Okay. So total, we can spend $1,091,000 more in taxes this year. And we have the debt for the school roof project, and that we have in our budget, it's $414,000. So overall, when I ran the numbers, we're looking at like an 8.5% to 9% increase on the tax bill if we spend everything. And that's around $475 to $500 for the average tax bill.
And we'd wipe out all of the excess capacity and we would have.
So not only are people going to be upset about their tax bills, but we have nowhere left to run next year if we have special ed come in as high as. So just budget-wise, out of the $601,000, we've estimated $300,000 of that needs to go to the fire suppression and to Pope's Tavern's project. So really, you have $300,000 available there. So when the elementary school came in altogether at around $400,000, that basically wipes out Prop 2.5. So that leaves you with $300,000 plus $100,000 for the new growth.
Did that include sped?
Yeah, did I do that right? 300, 390, 100.
So that's before we pay steps and lanes for contracted positions. positions, like where
So,
it's done.
so right now, when we look at the overall status of the budget, we have around $21,556 that would be in excess capacity at this point in time. But that doesn't include an overall raise. There's no 2% for everybody else in the budget. And it didn't include any increases to the data processing line, which was, I don't know what that's gonna be, but we just have that one level funded. So when we increase the vocational student, and then we decrease the circuit breaker and increase for the sick buyback, we're looking at a $34,000 increase in spending, and that puts us in a $12,000 deficit. So that's where we stand right now. And the tax bills are gonna be taxed at the max. So unless we make substantial cuts to the lines, that's what we're looking at. So not only are we looking at high taxes, but next year we have no buffer. So,
So just so I'm clear, so when we go back to the committee and have a budget discussion, with the number that you got from Silver Lake on Thursday, before they start
Yeah.
trimming, with the number we presented before we start trimming, and with the fire suppression and Pope's Tavern and everything else, we're looking at a $12,000 deficit?
deficit right now.
Before we do any other contracts negotiations.
Okay, I just want to make sure I say that correctly when I say that.
So
And typically 2% costs about
$100,000 when you add in all the lines.
2%, oh,
Yeah.
For the other unions and the other non-union.
So that's where we stand as of tonight. Silver Lake did agree to ask their principals to go back and administration to look at their budget and try to trim $400,000. $400,000 won't get us to the 150. It'll probably get you to 175 to 185 for the assessment. So we need to make cuts in all sorts of places to just come within the budget. Then we need to talk about what we want to do. Do we want to tax to the max? Or are we going to make tough decisions? So I'm not sure, if we cut the two largest places to cut are Silver Lake and the elementary school, and we have the least control with Silver Lake. Bob?
Do you have an approximate figure that we need to look at for a cut?
Well, you guys came in approximately $40,000 more above the number that we have in the budget. So I would hope you would cut at least $40,000 to try to make that first number that you presented.
So at least 40.
At least the 40.
Were you coming up with 40?
Yeah.
The sick buyback and the vocational student.
Oh,
So that totals 40.
Yeah, it was like 35 or 30, depending upon which math you're using. That you need to come up with a difference there right away.
And we have 2 longevity payments, and not in the budget too.
Sick buyback and longevity. Yep. So that's 30,000.
Longevity is 30, yeah.
So
Vocational, yeah, okay.
so you were at 60 in additional spending, 26. So that's 34. So 34,000. Kim.
I'm a little uncomfortable giving a number right now because I know that's what it came in early, but we haven't really. I think we need to start at the philosophy of how much do we want to be in excess capacity before we start sort of dictating where people.
Well, I'm just saying that they need to get to that to just to hit the number that we have in the spreadsheet now.
Yes. No, I don't 100% disagree, but I think we need to have this discussion about. Let's talk about Silver Lake just quickly. We send out a directive to all the departments about what we need department heads to put in for their budget. This year was supposed to be level service. That is a department has never consistently passed in a budget of which we've asked for, okay? So I think we talked a little bit about at your meeting, this Halifax Elementary School meeting last week, about the fact that when you have retirement, you need to recognize that savings in order to pay for the steps and lanes. And so I'm so glad that the three of you guys came to this meeting so that you can understand why we're so stuck on having to pay for steps and lanes. Because I know some of you are new to the process in the sense of you haven't seen the history that we have all seen, where the teachers typically, they're the only contract that doesn't have to be approved at town meeting. Every other employee, fire, police, highway, people at the town hall, every contract individually has to be presented at town meeting and approved by the residents. And so it's easy for them to say no.
The other aspect of that is when you guys sign a contract, you're signing a 3-year contract. All the other contracts are yearly openers.
Yes, and I definitely have talked to them about wage openers, and that's definitely something that we're moving toward for the schools. But I bring that up to say that right now the teachers would get raises, and we have no money right now to fund any other contracts. And we have on paper we have a $12,000 deficit before we fund raises.
Yes.
And I don't feel that Silver Lake is going to come down to that number. They kept talking about it's for the kids, but, I don't think we're teaching our kids anything if we're not teaching how to cooperatively exist with other departments and to follow the rules, because just because it's for the schools doesn't mean the rules shouldn't be followed. And so, I'm curious to see how Clinton feels about the assessment. And it's really hard for me to actually say that I would be actively not supporting the Silver Lake assessment if I don't see any kind of movement.
Well, I'm not going to support their number if they don't come down to the 150.
Yeah.
Because I think the 150, when you look at what happened to their budget, they have approximately an $800,000 decrease in Chapter 70 funds because of the charter school situation. So when you look at their budget and you take that aspect out, the 3% overall, I think that that's something that we need to be able to fund. And I've said that 3% of the total town assessment should be a sustainable number to forecast out. But when you look at their all their steps and lanes, retirement, transportation changes, they're at $782,000.
Right.
So we've told them that that's not a sustainable number.
Right, and so that's why, when we talk about the direction of level service, so they also had 4 retirements at the middle school. So again, instead of recognizing that savings, they're creating another
Position.
program. I'm not saying that those programs are not warranted, but I'm saying that I know the last few years you've given them a percentage, and I feel uncomfortable with giving percentage because I feel like we're treating them differently than we do everybody else. The level service should be level service, and then whatever that number is, then we're all on the same plane.
The only reason why I disagree with you on that is their level service, just for the teachers, is above the 3%.
Right, but that's the cost of, if you're providing the same service. See, some of their costs they can't control. They carry their own health insurance, electricity, those kinds of things.
But they can for the cost of the salaries. That is a manageable thing that they need to actively manage. And just the cost of the salaries, just the cost of the all steps and lanes is $509,000.
But that's my point. For the last few years, whenever there's a retirement, instead of recognizing it, they replace it, and then they add in, they spend the money that they save. And you're right, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. But take all that aside, I think that we need to have a discussion, and and maybe we bring this up tomorrow night with the other selectmen, Charlie, we need to have a fundamental agreement on what kind of unused levy do we want to leave on the table? Because we have been very conservative about our spending, and we have, you know, I like to call it our tucky in case there's an emergency. And so do we lay off just to have a tucky? Does that make sense? Is that a good philosophy? We've never really had a talk about that. So maybe the decision is to go to the levy. I don't know, but that's something that we need to sort of talk about at a higher level.
I think that should be a joint.
Yeah,
Meeting.
no, I understand that, but we need to sort of, that's why I wish they were here, but we didn't, you know, we were talking about this, but.
Well, and if that's the philosophy, it needs to be respected and agreed by every department.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
not, they, and us, we can't, any department can't think they're exempt from that.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's tricky with the regional because you just don't know.
Right.
But we all know that they've been screaming the same, I mean, the finance committee in Kingston, you don't really hear conflicted, but have been screaming the same thing that we've been screaming for years, and they just don't listen. It's like,
But this is the problem, is that it takes, the last, you know, it takes 2 towns
To vote no.
to vote no. And I don't know that you'll have 2 towns, because what's been happening is that they sort of, historically over the last few years, instead of asking all 3 towns, how do you feel, really, and really listening to us.
They
go
get 2 towns to
Kingston's
say
number.
yes.
They go to Kingston's
Yeah.
number. And so they're building this whole Kingston's here, and it's, and that's, I don't like that that is what's happening, because we're all a team regardless of the percentage. And they go to Kingston's number, so then they know Kingston will vote yes for it.
So like last, Charlie,
And I don't know how much you talked to Kingston Putnam about this. It certainly seemed that Kingston's number was even worse than ours, because they had a substantial increase in their, I'm not blanking on the term, the minimum contribution.
yeah,
That was only worth $700,000 before any additions. I don't, obviously, for good reasons, know the status of their budget, but they can't, I would doubt, given that, they're in any better shape than we are,
So-
especially with what I've heard about their elementary school special ed increases.
I would suspect though, that I was sitting next to Mary.
Which one? Can you pull up
And
the chart, the
I think they would love for them
The
to
at a
get
glance report?
$100,000.
do you have the internet right now? No, we don't.
Is what they talked about. So when the gentleman got up and he in his
I'm gonna look at the
speech
at a glance for Kingston.
mentioned the number 400.
I had it yesterday.
Why Silver Lake is
It's not
saying,
here.
well, if you notice, Maureen Springer put the motion in to say not more than 400, so that it would keep them from coming to.
What are you looking
And
for,
what that
Gordon?
means, so more conversation.
Yeah, it's not gonna be
with our
there.
Brothers and sisters in the finance communities there, in the other 2 towns.
Yes, and really to get the representatives in to talk to the finance committee because they represent the taxpayers. Maureen Springer at one point at the end of the meeting said, you know, we're not selectmen and we're not.
Look for the
finance
required
committee
minimum
people. We just
contribution?
keep
No, I'm
hearing
looking for the
about
excess
school."
capacity.
And that's
Oh,
not true.
okay.
Well, exactly. Right, but that's what but she's done that, she
Do you know
said
what the
that so
password
many
is for
times. and I
Wi-Fi
think
here?
she's-
No.
I'm not gonna
Ask-
engage in it.
go ask
anymore
Charlie.
Because it's just.
Walk up to him and ask
Because
him.
they don't, you can say it in 12 different languages, and they're not gonna understand that they represent the children's grandmother that can't afford her taxes. And so that's, you know, that's our job, so we wanna work cooperatively with them, but, and I hate going to town meeting and saying that we support it, but I don't know how else to do it, when I don't feel like we're being heard. So, anyway, and it's not just them, we can't balance our budget just on Silver Lake, we just need them to be more reasonable, so that, you know, going forward, and you guys will play a big part in the budget for your own school, in the sense of, whenever there's a new program introduced, I know you are, because the questions you asked at the meeting was so great, and I want you to all know how much I appreciate all those great questions that you had. That was awesome. To ask the questions is hard. So I appreciate it.
Well, you guys are here. What do you feel should be left in excess capacity? Or do you think there should be, or do you think we should tax to the levy limit and not make, because we're looking at cuts. Should we tax to the levy limit, or should we come up with some number that gives an excess capacity?
And can we just explain, because I know Alex is fairly new, that in the different departments outside of the school, we're already at minimum staffing. So we're at minimum staffing. Police, fire, the accountant's office has 2 people, you know, these town clerk has 2 people. So we've already over the years kind of chiseled that. So there's not a lot of numbers in this.
And the expansion in the fire department 2 years ago was funded by the change in the ambulance cost. So there was no real impact to the tax base on that, on the property tax aspect. So Charlie, on Kingston's excess capacity,
Yeah.
1.9 million.
That's what they have in excess capacity?
That's their excess cap, yeah. And their prop 2.5, I think she told me last week was around $800,000. So
So if they want to go ahead and just spend,
they've got it.
Yeah, and I have a sense of, I had a sense that Kingston was going to support it.
So, I mean, that's,
so then
we're gonna have to,
check in with our friends next door then.
is there a way to possibly have the,
Unless we can get our own representatives on the Silver Lake School Committee to actually hear us and to change the vote or to try to, you know.
so there's 2 separate issues. The philosophy issue on the excess capacity and what Silver Lake's number needs to be. Because even if they get to the 150, we're still together.
Yeah.
So kind of neither one of them want to hear us out.
I don't think so. I mean, 2 of the members didn't really say anything. And Paula, I'm sorry.
Oh, she's Halifax, too, Paula, right?
Yes.
So there's 3 of them.
Paula, Mark, and Ed.
I know Mark would.
Plimpton has an excess capacity of 705,000.
And ours is 600?
Ours is 600, but we know that 300's gone right off the bat.
Well, we don't know, maybe Plimpton had an increase in
Yeah, we-
sped. Like we had an increase of sped of what, 400,000?
No, 200,000 is the increase in sped, and their regular budget is about 200,000.
No. I thought it was 400 for sped.
No. Look at this.
I hate this new format. I can't.
It's the last page.
This will take me 10 minutes to decide because I like it so much better when it's all. Anyway, so my opinion is I personally don't, I think we should leave excess. I don't think we should tax to the max because then next year we're screwed or if something major happens and we need, you know, whatever in the town. I want to say a fire truck because that's the most expensive thing that comes to mind.
But take out capital items out of that aspect.
All right.
It's a people organization.
Okay,
That's
so
the
regardless,
largest part.
my answer is no. I don't think we should tax the woman. I think we should leave excess. That's my answer.
Even from a home budget. We're real the max.
Yeah, never.
You can't.
And if that means we have to turn, then we have to turn.
I understand.
Live within your means.
Yeah, I understand dealing with staffing, but at some point, everybody's got to compromise.
So
Yes.
When was the last time we taxed to the max?
it's been a
7
few.
years.
It's been a few years because we've actively been saying we can't afford the tax to the max, and that's why we got up to 601,000. And then we talked about putting projects inside the levy.
Right, so we wouldn't even have that ability if it weren't for the fact that we had access.
Right.
Yes.
So that's why I have a problem.
I mean, this board with the selectmen has actively not looked to spend to the full levy.
I don't have my other 2 selectmen here. But I don't have an appetite to spend to the levy. But I also, it's really hard, we need to stay on the same page because if you have to lay people off, then you're paying, what is it, Charlie, the formula is you lay off
Yeah,
One
but
and a half
at some point you do it, because it's a short-term hit.
Right.
I mean, if we have to lay people off, we lay people off, even though, yes, you're paying people for unemployment, but that's what we do.
I understand that, Charlie, but do you share the philosophy of not going to the levy?
Yes, for all the reasons you all mentioned. I mean,
And you, I'm sorry.
one is simply, you want some room to play in future years. Two is philosophically, politically, in dealing with the residents, we've tried to, and it's, in some ways, it's not immaterial. We're talking 300,000, let's say, out of a levy of somewhere on the order of 13 to 14 million. We're talking 2.5%.
2.5% is right.
Yeah, so, I mean, if it's a $6,000, we call it $6,000 per house, I don't know if that's the right number, but it's in that.
Yep.
So you're talking $150. Mind you, everybody would love to have $150 in the sense of, if I'm only paying $6,000, you're gonna save me $150 off my bill, I'll take that. But in the bigger scheme, for most people, it's, you know, just as we're looking at, it's 2.5% of our budget, or that's 5% of our levy. $150 in a household budget where the household budget is, I think, on the order of 60 or 70,000. I'm not saying there aren't people at 20 or 30, and I'm not saying there aren't people at
Average.
What's $70,000? 150 isn't even 1%. It's not even half of 1%. But philosophically, they understand that we're trying not going to the max. One of the reasons is because we know our taxes here in Halifax are higher than their smaller industrial equivalents. And so if we can put a brake on those bills, we're doing so.
Okay,
So-
now I'm gonna complicate.
So what is the number that you would suggest?
You said 300.
300?
Well, I'm
Just something to throw out there.
Something on that order.
No, I'm
in that
asking what's
neighborhood.
spending the levy.
Yeah.
You wanna do that?
Okay, so let's complicate the details
Yeah.
a little bit more. And this comes, wage personnel comes into play for this, okay? So right now, in all of the school budget, Silver Lake and Halifax, there's a percentage of a raise for the teachers.
Yep.
Already built in, and it's contractual, we have to pay the raise, it's nothing. But then that means if we cut $300,000 from the budget, are we going to try to also fund the other unions some sort of percentage? Or are we gonna say, I'm sorry, we can't afford a raise for you this year? Because then you're cutting $400,000 in order to pay for a $100,000 raise. So that's a lot, that's a thing we need to talk about.
So what's our board's feeling on that? And then,
Just because I can't see the other side, is there anybody that has a counter argument to spending to their bill?
yeah, well, the counter argument is that the residents of town have a set of services in place that they expect to be there. And if you're going to change those services when you can afford tax to that, it's not whether or not you should, but you can. There's a group of people in town that will say, then you spend to the max.
No, there will be.
No, I'm sure there will be. And then, you know, at the same time, you say that same, well, I would say that same group of people, how could you possibly, you know, even if you're used to a certain level of services, how can you expect to not have some sort of surprise and not have some sort of fallback in place?
Yeah. I'm not sure, you know, I don't want to see us spend to the levy limit. But
I think it'd be irresponsible.
But I think when you look at what services we're going to have to ask to be cut, I think that's going to be a decision based on the services. Now, I don't think in a million years that I would ever be caught saying those statements, but you're going to look at the services that we're recommending to cut, and you're going to choose whether or not we should cut those services or not. So if it means out of the elementary school is 25% of the budget, thereabouts. So that means that you're going to take, if we choose to give the raise of the 100,000 and you have to cut 400,000, that means the elementary school needs to cut 100,000,
At least.
right? Just looking across the board, that means Silver Lake needs to cut 100,000. Because they're 25%, and it means we need to, out of the other 50% of the budget, we need to find 200,000. There's rough numbers that I'm.
Yeah, and if anybody, I'm fine for talking about the here, obviously, we're camera and anything like that, but I think you need to do a lot of sharpening pencils before we actually come up with real numbers. The reason I'm saying that is just as an example, that 25% includes our debt, includes our health insurance, includes the retirement. And so, I mean, you know.
Yeah, it could be 150 that we're asking
Right,
the schools to cut because we have set
Because of our third of our budget, let's say, is already.
is fixed cost. So
I guess I would have a different opinion on it, and in my short exposure to it, I would have a different opinion on it if it seemed to be an anomaly in terms of the pre-sped cost and everything else, but I don't see it being,
so I looked at that number.
yeah.
4 years ago, we were at 1.2 million. Where this projected budget is 1.9 million. So it's just doing this.
So I think that's what Bob was just gonna poke at me about is I guess I feel like, I'm sure I'm not the only one, that a good chunk of our budget is eaten up by the sped budget, and I don't know how to get it under control. Like, how do you get that number out under control? Because we're obligated by law to fund it. So we can't ever, so it's like this protected piece within our budget, and I feel like the rest of our regular day kids are gonna suffer because we are obligated to pay this special ed budget.
So in that point,
So we're not arguing about, not arguing between us, but we're bringing up, $400 differences in materials and.
Yeah, copiers and whatnot,
consumables.
but it's like,
so to look at that aspect, if you have no control over that 1.9 million for the special ed, that means you're looking to cut 150, and you have no control over vocational either.
no.
So it means you're looking at making 150 or 100 or whatever the number is, just in regular day.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's already this big compared to our budget. Like, if our budget's this big, you take out special ed and vocational, our like regular quote kids are left with this little piece, and that's where we're gonna cut. That sucks for them, to be frank. Like, I'm not saying that to you, I'm making like a general statement, like, that
They
just
become
sucks.
expendable.
Cindy, you had your hand up for.
We haven't had to do that before, so we haven't had to even do that for 10 years because we did make a commitment like 15 years ago to fund sped so that you guys wouldn't have to cut the regular day budget. But now we're at the point, we haven't been here in many, many years.
And so going back to all the questions that I was trying to ask Marie at the meeting, and like the number line of where the kids are, and where, because 1.9 million now is what we're looking at, and if you know that there's 2 kids dropping off next year, and they're high cost kids, then maybe you can make a different argument of what you want to cut.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So what do you want to leave in the levy?
No,
Like, you know?
that's what I said, if it was an anomaly year and you knew that you had something falling off
Yeah.
the back end, but I don't think that's the case.
Well, and then, so this is my question about, and maybe if I can't make the next school committee meeting, you could ask this question. So we talked about that number growing, and she made a comment about, most of the numbers are between the 7 and 12 grade. And, with this new program, that was gonna save 5 students from going out, right? And with this behaviorist, they felt like they had saved maybe 5
Something.
students, something. Why do we go up 200,000? Is that tuition? I'd be curious. Or is that new replacements? I would just be curious. That's a good question.
I know in the past she has said, and I certainly won't speak for anybody, but the transportation costs are very volatile.
Yeah,
And again, that's something, we gotta get them there.
Yeah.
Nothing to do about that.
yeah.
But there's also such a wide range of costs and services that it's really hard to put
Yeah.
a hard number on.
And, you know, she does have a lot of experience in developing programs, and that's why she was such a great candidate for us. So I think eventually she's going to kind of work on these programs to try to help us save money. But in the meantime, we're kind of out of time in the sense of this latest increase in the civil life increase and the debt, this is not happening in many years.
So, I mean, if they're not gonna share the information publicly as school committee members, you should have access to more data than the public. So you guys should be able to request that data and look at it and come up with an idea of where the costs are being spent. Like at which grade level are these students? So that you can make an informed decision. Look, this kid's in 3rd grade and the placement's $300,000. Then, you know,
We need to
Looking-
be cognizant of
looking-
that moving forward.
looking at it, you know you're going to have that cost going forward.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
That's-
think that's more or less what she was trying to get at, just by being kind of vague overall. Is it, I mean, hate to single out one person, but you could have a single elementary school child that wasn't in the district last year, throw them all up.
Yeah.
Not.
Yes.
I'm not blaming anybody, but that one item, that one person,
Right.
maybe 80% of the increase.
So I guess if you as school committee members have an understanding of that,
Yeah.
I think I would feel when you're making your budget decision more comfortable. If you can't share that information publicly, I think you as school committee members have access to more private information than I guess I do as finance committee member. So I would ask you to take that review.
And then the other thing that's within your budget are they math books, or what was the program that you were going to have? So that's something that,
And that's not in-
no, it's not, it's nothing to do with that, but I'm just talking about the increases of your budget, so.
Well, it's
what
not
is-
in our
No,
budget.
it's not in the budget.
But I think it's something that needs to be in the budget, actually, because what's been happening over the years is we keep putting that off. We keep putting certain books off. Like, that's the problem with Silver Lake, is sometimes it catches up where, remember a couple of years ago when they were trying to meet the number and Joy cut all the supplies down and it was so tight.
And then the next year they had to bring all those supplies
Yeah,
back up.
because it's just the way it is. Like you're kicking the can down the road, but eventually.
So are you gonna say now that the 40,000 decrease, you want us to make that 75?
Well, I want you to think about if it's that important where next year we may not have the 80.
Well, then why would we have 35 this year?
No, because don't you need the books regardless?
Right, but my
It
point,
may
yeah.
have to be a sacrifice of the position.
But my point last week was, why would we, so understood, whatever we picked, I mean, I think the total line is 68 and change, so this half is 34.5,
Yeah.
69,000.
Yeah,
So my question was, I understand that no matter what we do is gonna be above 34.5.
Yeah.
But why would you make that sort of investment when the town is already saying, hey, your number's too high, get your town down?
because
Get the number down.
I'm afraid next year we wouldn't have the additional.
Right.
If we don't do it this year, next year it could be 69.
But we're already at the point where we don't have 34. It's not like, if we were saying the number's already in there, you gotta get your number down by 40 grand,
Yeah.
fine, take that off the table, now we're looking for 6 grand.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
I don't.
just need more updates.
Yeah, I certainly do.
Okay.
But my point last week, a couple weeks ago was, I understand budgeting for the future, obviously, but the number, whatever program they land on, which I don't, to be honest with you, I don't really know how much input we have on that. Whatever program they land on, could be less than 68, could be more than 68.
Okay. all right.
So if we're gonna say, hey, let's incorporate $34,000 into a budget, half of a math program that we might use next year, we might not.
Okay.
And it's gonna be harder next year to say, hey, remember that 34 you guys already budgeted? Well, now we gotta put in another 40 as opposed to this year, say, we don't have the money, keep that off the table, that's next year's fight.
Okay.
Let's look at where we can be productive and have the least impact on the town and the kids. I know you wanna hear it's all about kids.
No, it is about
Yeah.
kids. I mean, I raised 4 sons in that school system, I
Yeah.
get it. And it's a good point that you made, I just want you to be aware of
21 out of
next year,
district
already
placements.
have that on the list
Out
of
of
things that
district?
you know.
Yeah, so out of
I guess I would rather go into it with the
We need to
mindset
cut
of, let's
this.
try to
Yes,
maximize
agreed.
this year,
And this.
cut every line where we can, knowing that in the back of our minds,
Yep,
we already have
agreed.
that 68 coming up.
Okay.
That's, I'm just speaking on
No,
behalf
that's
of me.
fair.
The
No, that's
question I
fair.
have for Steve is, what would be the impact of services?
Are we
So-
not-
what do the members of the board think? Is there a number that you have in your head, or?
I'm gonna be honest, looking at the budget, it's not something, I don't see where we can cut 40 grand and not encounter some sort of layoff or some sort of, service compromise.
So,
And now, again, speaking on behalf of Alice Media.
so if the recommendation is to cut $300,000 to $400,000 to leave money on the table, is that what everyone here feels?
Yes, I do.
I do as well, because even
Yeah.
if we can spend to the max, we actually can't, because there's always going to be something that comes up a couple months into it that surprises us. So I don't even think that, like, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that we can ever spend to the max, because
So,
It's just not an option for us.
just so we're clear, once the tax levy is set in September or October, that excess cap number is cut. So if there's an issue that comes up in the summertime, like I don't know, if there's something that we mess up on, or something that happens where we have to come up with more money, that excess cap is what you have to spend up from annual town meeting to the September or October timeframe. So,
Which you would be setting at zero.
well, if we set it at
Yeah.
zero, if something comes up in that window in between there, where you're looking at stabilization and you're looking at other places to get the money from.
So where the savings or the techie, as I like to refer to it, comes in handy is for next year, if we had another substantial increase in spend. It would,
Right.
that's, yeah.
Or, the conversation we just had, knowing that there's gonna be another 68 grand coming next year.
So, the other question that maybe you could ask is, are there kids that are receiving placements now that aren't
On
in
the set line,
that aren't in school? Is there any forecast for the kids for the following year? So you have a 3 or 4-year-old kid
yeah.
that's getting the preschool program, but we don't think that we can place them in-house. Is there an estimated cost for those? Can we forecast out, which again goes the whole line of questioning, can we forecast out, is this going up another 200,000 with the current students? Because I understand it always changes. But with the current students, what's the number for the following year?
What's interesting is when we talk about that spend line, Marie did say that she had budgeted a little bit of a buffer in the sense of they were making an allowance for, unforeseen circumstances.
Charlie?
We have to do these days, because you see what's happening in Bridgewater for, I guess, like 3 or 4 years straight. They ran into a crisis with their overall school budget because they couldn't fund the special ed.
Well, not only that, but, Kane let us know a couple weeks ago or last week that we were at like 4 or 5 students over the previous month. Well, that's February. So, Marie, I don't want to say we're at the mercy. Where we can only take, as a committee, what Marie is telling us. And I'm not saying she's certainly not
No.
trying to bend it one way or the other, but, Charlie's right. At the end of the day, nothing's to say that trend's going to continue, or you're going to get, heaven forbid, another
Like 100.
higher. higher
Last year we had 4 kids move in and it cost us $200,000.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's the thing about that number, is that you can't, it is hard, and I know I was given, I wanted answers to what the savings were and what the trend is, because I think that is an important thing to be historical. I understand, there's variances in that, and we all understand there's nothing we can do about it, and we know the fault is, it's just the state doesn't even reimburse us. Like, they're supposed to reimburse us 100%, and they don't.
So I went through the Chapter 70 formula over the last few days, and when you look at the Chapter 70 formula, you go to the big formula sheet and go to, keep going over, and then go to municipal contribution.
Yeah.
And scroll down.
That is down. This is
Foundation.
just for Halifax.
Go to foundation budget then, and scroll down. So right now, in-house, the projected number for in-house special needs is 24 students, according to their estimate. And it's 6 out-of-district placements. That's how the Chapter 70 budget works. So it assumes that there's special education in-district headcount is assumed percentage representing 3.75% of the children from K to 12. It's not, so we know that number is 84. The state's only giving you credit for 24. It's just the number of kids that they project for the
So
foundation.
84 is 3.75% of total student
No,
body.
No.
we actually have 84.
And they're-
So, yeah, the other way,
Savings
that's-
expense- Right, the other way. They're only, chapter
Allowing you.
70 is only accounting for 24.
Right.
And 6 of them are out of district.
No. An additional 6 students are
Are
going to
out
be
of
out of district, but we know we have 21 students.
Yeah.
So the foundation budget is not based on actuals. It's based on an assessment of what happened 25 years ago when they developed the formula.
And the percentage of reimbursement is at
65.
5%.
And that reimbursement, just so everybody's clear, is above 43,000 for the upcoming
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
So it went up an extra 1,000.
And Marie has always been clear that whatever grants and funding we've been getting, they're only going away.
Yes.
She said a couple times, we've got, I think at least 2, more or less, we have at least 2 grants, I think. She said are going away just as an effect of fund.
So
And then that's, I mean, speds, I don't say the easy one is the big number, but I think Bob made a comment a couple of months ago that it's shocking when you look at the out-of-district vocational, it's cheaper to get a degree from UMass as a resident
Yes.
than it is to pay for an out-of-district vocational student.
Yes.
yep, it's a
And it's our application.
No, I get it, but
it's over $30,000 for the tuition and transportation for one vocational placement out of district.
let's have Mary for
So, I mean, the average foundation budget for the Halifax, the average student is $10,000. So when we do out the formula, we're only getting aid based on 40% of $9,704.
And I guess that just speaks a little more to my point that, I mean, we're looking at the budget, but at some point, the base costs are there, and you're not gonna cut 40 grand from papers and pencils.
But can we just bring it to the light for a second, because when I looked at the proposal, you know, I understand that they're starting a program, and I'm sure it's much needed for kids with concussions or anxiety issues, the program that they're starting. But also in that budget is an increase on the sports assistant coach stipends. They were adding on, I think it was 3 assistant coach. And I know they were $1,500 each, but that adds up. It all, those are the things that add up.
I'll give you a similar discussion in terms of the stipend for the student council.
Yeah. It all adds up.
So, if we're talking 300,000 excess levy, are we talking about the $100,000 raise? Are we going to support a 2% raise, or are we going to support?
I doubt it would pass it. But,
Well,
I
Well, I
think
mean, to me, you know, as I was talking about this in Kingston, you want to start from top down or bottom up. You don't give anybody a raise. That includes the school. That includes step increases. You start the budget there, and you say, here, to keep everything, besides step increases, besides raises, everything else, what's our number? Okay, how much more money do we have left? For instance, we're covering the special ed costs. For 2 reasons. One, we have to legally, and 2, we've had an agreement with the elementary school that we're not going to hit the elementary school specifically because of special ed costs. We hold the rest of the budget requirements. Doesn't mean they don't get hit, but they get hit on the same proportions that we're looking at everybody else. So if we can't afford a pay increase for teachers, and we can't afford a pay increase for firefighters and for librarians, nobody gets paid. Now, I understand that for some people, they're very happy to throw grandma off the sled, so the rest of us can survive with the misery grandma, meaning laying off somebody to provide a pay increase for everybody else. Some places might do that, and I don't have control over that decision. But, you know, and that's where it would be in terms of talking with everybody else. That ultimately, if we're talking to everybody outside the school, they're saying, we either lay people off so everybody gets a pay increase, or we have a decrease in services, or we don't lay anybody off, or we do a zero. With the school, they're bound to a contract, but if they only have a certain amount of money in their budget, it only can go so far, including the pay increases. They'll have a very tough decision. I don't envy the situation they're in when they're making that decision.
I mean, you'd have to pay for your own raise within your
No, I
budget.
get it.
Yeah.
So,
Which isn't, yeah.
It could.
But, you know,
Expense by the lines.
If I'm sitting down with unions, if I'm sitting down with the wage and personnel people, I'm gonna go and say, I don't want to throw anybody off.
so here's the other aspect to that, is that if we do decide to cut 300,000 and there's money available, that agreement could still be thrown out the window at town
Well,
meeting.
sure, town meeting ultimately makes a decision they want to make. And I can't do any, as much as I can get up on the mic and anybody else can get up on the mic, if the townspeople choose to tax themselves to the full extent possible, at least they're making that choice.
Right.
They've got a choice. We come in with a lower number. If they want to go high, I don't care. Every single person on Facebook on Halifax Locals can complain about it, but it's the townspeople making the decision to tax themselves. And I certainly don't have that opportunity at town meeting. We'll tell them, here's what you'll do, this is what you're getting for the money, the additional tax money, and here's how much more it will cost you to build. I'm not saying come up with an alternate budget. I'm gonna let somebody else who really wants it to come up with that alternate budget. I'm not necessarily there to do that for them. But I can certainly know what the effects are. And then they can propose it and they can make a motion at town meeting. And we'll see what happens.
Charlie, can you refresh my memory? I want to take you back to the year.
Dinosaurs will be.
Yeah, no, okay. I'm gonna say it was 2003, 2004, and we had to do the 8.5% across the board. Yeah.
Even earlier than that.
No, because I have to think of which child was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the recession hit in started hitting in 2000. But it might have been, let's
Yeah,
assume it's
because
that.
it was about 2000,
Yeah.
I was on the finance committee, it was probably about 2003, 2004. And we had to do 8% across the board, and we didn't do raises.
A
Do you
lot of
re-
people with their expenses.
Do you remember, and this is what started the initiative to do wage openers, so every union besides the teachers have wage openers. So we made an agreement saying, every year we see what we can afford, and every year they've been awesome about working with us to try to balance it. Couldn't ask for a better group. But did we have the teachers, did we ask them not to take the raise, or did we ask the union not to take the raise so that we didn't have to do layoffs?
I'm thinking here.
I think we
I'm sure we
did.
could have asked, but I'm fairly sure, my memory says they threw grandma off
The
the sled.
teacher said no for sure,
I was
didn't we?
gonna ask if that's ever successful.
I don't think with the teachers, I think that.
We did here in town for the other unions, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that
We ended up, I know we ended up in the situation, remember correctly, with the patrol officer, because we were still, the contracts that we had.
we reopened negotiations.
We were still negotiating with the patrol officers and the firefighters. Now, this was a different fire department, but it's not as learning.
Not as cooperative.
The patrol, well, also that, but the patrol officers, he went to
So much for the
both
wage
unions
and
and said,
personnel
look,
classification.
we've made an offer, we're legally compelled to honor it if you say yes at this time. We're going to give you a limited time period to say yes. You can't offer anything more than what we already did. If by a certain date, you don't say
Right
yes,
now, they're not gonna go
you
to
take
step
the
two.
offer.
Everybody else can be at the
Patrol
max for a
officers
lot of
agreed,
people.
firefighters did not, and they ended up with a zero.
Yes.
Because long term, you said, we don't have any money. You said no, you wanted to fight about it.
I knew that, because they have been super cooperative, so that's why it's really hard. Charlie and I and the other selectmen sit across and negotiate with all the other employees. And it's about a fairness thing, that it's unfair that they have to balance their budget off their paychecks, yet some people in town are getting a raise. So I do think that balancing your budget within your budget would be something that we need to talk about.
Unrelated question, and I'm, maybe, this isn't a question, but it would seems to me like that discussion would be a lot more cooperative if the majority of the teachers you're having discussion, whoever you're having discussion with, are with the tax rate.
I don't disagree with
It's
that.
not almost none of them are. Exactly. That's where we have maybe two. Yeah.
It's not just the teachers, but you
No, no,
have
like,
the
and
custodian
they're
and
just-
you
yeah.
have what's the
So
yeah,
it's
cafeteria.
much more likely, you know, if you're talking about a $150 hit in everybody's tax bill, it's much more likely that if you're talking about their tax bill, they'd be amenable to that, and I don't see that being the case as currently constituted. I get your point.
Yeah, I
But
don't disagree
if you
with
take a
you.
step back and say, why would they do that?
But that's what wage openers are so, you know, I'm like a dog with a bone with wage openers. We needed to do other things this year, but that's why a wage opener is so important, because right now, if we make the decision not to do raises, then it's an easier thing to start with because we haven't committed. Nobody on this side of the budget is scheduled to get, oh, wait a minute, what contract, the police is under?
No, everybody's up.
Everybody's up?
We're doing we're doing the 1 year for everybody.
Oh, right.
Everybody's up.
Right.
In the-
Okay.
Go ahead, Sam.
But let's look at it like, okay, so I'm sitting here thinking and I'm listening and like, let's look at it a little bit differently. So we've already signed our teacher's contract, it's been ratified, we've already made that decision to give them the raise that they're going to get. That onus is on us. So we decided to do that. Therefore, we need to figure out how we can fund the rest of our budget based on what we have left, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so if we as a committee have already made that decision, like, I'm all for combing through every little piece of this and figuring out where we need to cut things. And if that means that we have to cut, hypothetically, this behaviorist or whatever he does, I have no idea, like, then that's what we have to do. However, my issue is, and I'll go to bat for it and I'll get tomatoes thrown at me and that's fine. My issue is I'm not gonna do all of that. I mean, I will, but I'm gonna do bullshit if I turn around and Silver Lake decides that they're gonna refinish their track this year because that's their priority.
So
That's my problem.
there are two. You got to remember,
And I know it's out of my control.
There's two separate things. There's capital items, and there's
But
operating.
I just use that as an example.
Well,
I meant like,
Right, but-
they're not gonna sharpen their pencils and they're not gonna do jack shit with their budget because this is the number, because we know Kingston's gonna support it, we know Kingston's gonna support it, doesn't matter what Halifax says, but then the elementary school whittles their budget all the way down.
It will be your so.
That'd be-
If Silver Lake doesn't drop their line, honestly, there is no other place that spends such a large sum of money than the elementary school budget.
Right, so us as a committee, what do we need to do? Do we need to go to Silver Lake and say, listen, guys, we're having an issue here? Like, as a school committee?
As voters and as school committee members, yes.
However, sorry, maybe not to apologize. However, Gordon's already explained that they're in a much different scenario in terms of the spending. In terms of Kingston has 1.8 million left on their cap. So going into it, speaking to somebody who's hearing it a lot different.
But when you look at their budget, their budget has their budget kind of has some other aspects. So they have their elementary school special ed is going up $800,000. So their Prop 2.5 is out the window right there. If this goes up, if Silver Lake goes up 400,000, that's 1.25%. And their town side of things already has an estimate of $800,000 of increased spending. So they're going to be
Combined overall, you're saying.
so combined overall. They're looking at like a 5-6% tax bill increase over there. So it's the members of the finance committees, I think, all sort of get this because we've been working cooperatively over the last few years. And the selectmen, when they've gone to these joint meetings, they've been working cooperatively with us as well. the aspect that's very difficult to get across is that we have very little control over Silver Lake. And last year, when they spent more than the 3% assessed, the total town assessment was more than 3%. Halifax's assessment decreased, right? So it's very hard for Halifax to say you need to make more cuts because the assessment number didn't change. Eventually, that will come back and hurt us because the assessment numbers have been changing. The whole budget. You're going to get parents if Silver Lake doesn't cut, the elementary school has to make significant cuts. You're going to get a group of parents that are going to say, you have money in your tax levy. You can spend that money and not make these cuts. You can keep all the staff. And we have the money to do that. So there's...
We don't have the money.
But
We're in a deficit right now.
And I guess my other question to that would be, what percentage of the parents, or that's a bad example, what percentage of the taxpayer is a parent concerned with day in, day out function across the street?
so I mean...
You gotta go in...
It's a battle between
Yeah.
the seniors.
Right. No, trust me, I get it. So I'm going into it as a school, school committee member, absolutely, the taxpayer also. And if I didn't have kids over there, I would be hard pressed to say, look at this large number. You gotta do something about that.
Oh, and they use.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So can I just bring up one
Yeah.
other thing when it comes to Silver Lake budget? Okay, this is a philosophy that years ago when John Tuffy was the superintendent, he was a past finance committee member and a past selectman in his community. And so he would provide a budget closer to what the towns would ask for. In the last few years, or maybe a couple of years before he retired, the Silver Lake School Committee members wanted him to give them their budget of everything that you need. And then we all go through this dance every year of, oh my God, look at the budget. You must cut it. And then, then we go through this dance of how much you want to cut. Now, Paula had said something interesting last Monday night when we were leaving the elementary budget. And I think you were there. She said that's our first cut. But when we were sitting there, they didn't act like it was their first cut. Right?
Yeah.
So
First
that-
draft.
First draft.
Yeah.
So I think the message for you guys too going forward is to direct the superintendent in the future. She did a good job this year on your elementary budget by not.
Last year she did a really good job.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, you just need to remind her that your wish for your budget is the first draft is what it should be. And if you,
Oh, yeah.
But that's their claim though. That's the claim. The claim is this is what the budget should be right here.
yes, but when we
Well,
have.
that's why it's our responsibility to go line by line.
Right, but
We shouldn't have to, that's what it is.
But when we ask all other departments, we ask every department, this is the directive. We want you to give us a level service budget, or in years we said level funded budget, and if something's going up, we need an explanation of why. So everybody plays by the rules. Everybody submits what we ask. And I just ask for the schools to do the same. Meaning, so you don't have to sit there, your budget was fine, but like Silver Lake, because all these things, all the wish lists are in the budget, you have to actively go by and cut things. And it looks like we're the bad guys all the time, but it's really, we can't afford it in the first place, and it shouldn't have showed up in draft one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
And then they argue though that that's like a need. So like when I sit there, and I don't mean to pick on Kane, but I listen to the kindergarten loves to use the laminate machine, and they really need a new one because this one acts up. And we need a new copier because that doesn't work. And we need this and we need that, and we need to paint the hallways. I'm thinking to myself, you do not need to paint the hallways.
Sorry.
You do not need a laminate machine.
That's why I
you want those things.
And that's why I wanted to know when I said to him, how do you come up with this number? And it says, well, this is what we have, these are real numbers, what we need to move forward with the school. You go, well, why haven't you spent what was allotted last year?
Right. And it's hard because then it turns into an argument over every single line, and it's like,
But that's where we're at.
yeah.
So we're looking at a $300,000 number for excess capacity that we're be looking to recommend.
That's your target.
That's, you know, that's not without input from the selectmen.
Right, but I mean, like, as a town, that's the direction that you're hoping that we're gonna go.
Well, I really think that, Kendra, if you wouldn't mind trying to schedule with Charlie a night that works for selectmen and the finance committee members to meet.
Are we gonna talk about the philosophy of?
I think we need to.
raises and-
Well, I think that, well, what's realistic from now will be 26th.
I
That's a
don't
good
think we have
idea.
anything for the 26th, because that was a night we were gonna try and schedule.
Okay, so can we ask the selectmen to come to the meeting, and can we ask our school committee members to come to that meeting?
Meaning Paula,
Hey, all of our elected school committee members, and ask the department heads to come. 26th.
look at everything.
I know that Joy won't be able to make it because they already have a meeting scheduled. But I would like the invite sent out that if this is the philosophy that we're gonna use for this budget, that we get buy-in from everybody. Because if we don't get buy-in from everyone, then we should evaluate what we're looking at doing.
So this one,
Yeah,
Do you want wage and personnel there too?
yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any input from what you've heard tonight that,
Yeah, not yet. I find that you seem to be separating the services versus the capital planning stuff.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that a little bit.
so normally what we do is we take our undesignated revenue number, which if you look online, you'll see that is free cash. So that's the money that was turned over from the previous years and money that's come in above what the estimated numbers were. And we've been taking that money and using that to fund our capital purchases. So we're not at the point where we can take any of the tax levy, personal and property tax levy, and use that money towards capital items. So that's been a philosophy that we've had at least since I've been on the finance committee, and I think it was as much as it was when Kim was on the finance committee. And the idea is so that you have to replace items every year. And that money is really one-time money. So if you chose to take free cash and spend it on the operating budget, which you can do, you aren't necessarily guaranteed to have that money the upcoming year. And you'd be looking at making harder cuts than you would be for the fiscal year that you're in.
You're trying to smooth it basically year to year.
Yep. And so the meeting that you were here for before was the capital plan meeting. So what we've done is we've asked the department heads to come up with a 5-year plan of all the capital items that they need replaced. And then the capital planning will go through, work with the department heads, and come up with a priority and see what money's available from year to year. So there's a lot of items that ideally would be in the property tax section if we had money. We should be starting to build some of that excess capacity number larger and taking some of that money and putting it towards capital so that we have an actual capital budget from the property taxes. And that's what we've talked about moving towards.
Instead of living year to year, essentially.
Yes. Because if the ambulance goes and we need to replace the ambulance, that's $400,000.
No, we have an engine that's $800,000 that's on the schedule to be replaced. And I think it's in 2 years.
So basically we have these two different sources of money that we've been using and deciding how to flow that money towards spending. So one-time money, we think of one-time money as just capital, and within the tax levy, that's the operating side of the budget. And then there are a lot of other towns that actually have one-time spending within their operating budget. They've made enough space in that they can do that plus fund their town. The real issues here in town are we're 92% residential. You've got Walmart and Stop and Shop is the biggest revenue for the commercial tax base. You've got 10% of the homes in town are actually the mobile home park. They count towards the mobile home park. The mobile home park gets assessed as a whole. Their average tax bill was like $435 last year. The average tax bill was $5,500. So you have a large number of residents paying a tenth of what the average home is.
Does commercial property pay a different rate?
No, they pay the same rate.
They do in Weymouth, it's like $13 and $25.
So there's a philosophy there that we don't have very many commercial properties, and we want to do everything that you can to try to get more business in town. So if you created a tax split, I think the number was $1 difference in the tax split was really only like 6 cents for the residential. So
Yeah, it might be so right, but yeah, if you're talking 92% versus 8% commercial, call it 90-10.
yeah,
What it means is drop $1 for the taxes on the residential, go up $9 for the commercial. That's your ratio. So that so if you want to drop people by $1 out of, it's about 18, so call it a little over 5%, you're increasing the tax rate for your businesses by 50%.
That would be break even.
yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't see any gain or loss here, but obviously individual property owners would see. And so, yeah, so 5%, $120, $300 for a residence. I don't know, the commercial properties are all over the place, of course, because there are various sizes.
Yeah.
As an example, is much larger than other commercial properties. But what you do is bump their taxes up by 50%. So,
Yeah, we don't need to give them another reason not to come.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting conundrum that we run into when dealing with this, is that obviously that idea of having the tax rate comes up a lot. I want to save money on my taxes, but I don't want to have any businesses leave town. Well, it's not going to work the same way.
Weymouth probably has the advantage of having Route 3 run right
Well,
there.
they have a commercial base.
3A,
Yeah, 38, 53,
58 and 18.
everything.
So we have, basically you have the biggest commercial is Cumbies, Walmart, and Stop and Shop. So if we're looking at cutting $300,000,
That's if you don't do raises. And you've got union and employees having health insurance, but I know taxpayers are, probably in their own jobs aren't getting raises, but I think that we need to keep that on the table to talk about it and with the other selectmen as well, to see how do we feel about that, what's the philosophy. I know it would be a tough sell at the town meeting, considering things would be being cut, but we've worked really hard on the wage and personnel study, and we, again, health insurance has been going up recently we've had employees that bring home less than they did a couple of years ago just on the health insurance.
so if we're talking about cutting that $300,000 to $400,000, just be aware that the elementary school budget, we're going to be looking at cutting a significant portion from that, because as Charlie brought up, you've got fixed costs for the elementary school is included in this.
Increasing fixed costs.
Well, no, so like the health insurance,
No, that's not in their budget, it's not ours.
no, it's in our budget, so that's
Yeah,
what I'm
it's
saying.
Yeah.
So like your health insurance is in the town side of the budget, it's not in the elementary school budget. So your costs are actually higher than what we have here. Like your regular day budget says that it's, $5,488,000. But it's more than that because we are paying the health insurance on the town side. So I mean, the first thing I would cut is the cemetery and the highway line, and I would cut the OPEB, even though I don't think it's a good idea.
Really? Okay.
I don't think cutting OPEB's a good idea, but I would cut that line for a one-time, or take the money out of free cash to fund that.
It's
Other post-employment benefits, so life insurance, health insurance, dental, and long-term, short-term
right,
if you
so
have
the
it.
state put up a formula that we should have so many millions of dollars in it.
We're up to 13 million that we need
We
now.
should have $13 million just hanging around for future
Yeah, okay.
health insurance costs. And we have,
She just left, so about 100,000.
Oh, very close.
And the normal cost, when you look at the curve, our normal cost was 670,000. So the liability grows each year by 670 for that year.
no town has it except for two. And one did it to the debt exclusion.
How come the health insurance is in our budget, not
And
this?
one is.
Because that's the way it's been lined up since
Okay.
we've. I don't know the answer.
Has it
Maybe
always
Kim.
been that way, Kim?
What?
Health insurance has always been in our budget, not the school, always.
Always, yeah. So the lake is separate. They have their own.
So, I mean,
It's really unfortunate. We've done such a great job trying to, I know taxpayers sometimes get upset at people at Facebook say tariffs that we spend on it. We really don't. We've been so conservative.
so the other item that's going to be really tough is the supplies. We have combed through over the past 20 years. There's not a lot of room in the supply lines.
So when we talk about free cash, so free cash is the leftover money that we didn't spend from last year, right? So what has historically happened over the last few years, because we've cut budgets, supplies, as Gordon has said, and anything that we can find, because we're, all these budgets on, on this side of the budget is so tight, we've had less money to buy capital items because there's not as much left over at the end of the year because they're spending to their budget because we don't have any excess in there. And so that's why a couple of years ago we made the decision to tax that extra sales tax for restaurants in the town. And that was a tough decision for us to add another tax to, those restaurants. But it was a way to fund our capital plan. And we're
Yeah,
seeing that
70,000.
amount. Yeah,
That's other towns were
70,000
doing
this
it.
year, and so that's 2 police cruisers right there.
And then we've looked at the cost of actually replacing the cruises or not replacing the cruises.
Yeah.
And because we've been replacing the cruises, we were up at like $22,000 for maintenance and repairs line for them. We're down to
It shouldn't have down. Oh,
We're down to
yeah.
11,000 now.
Say it should have gone down. And
Oh, no, I totally went
And
down.
that was my other point a couple weeks ago was, or across the street, was that, Kane's maintenance and upkeep budget, again, is the easy target, it's easy principle. But, across table from said, you have to understand that at some point, that maintenance and upkeep has to be either steady or go down if the town's making such a vast, investment in.
well, so the one place that I kind of disagree with you on that is that line had always been presented as a number, and I'm not sure that it was ever paid at that number. So there's been a lot of maintenance line. I want to say it was like 115,000 over the years. That's about the number. Every time there's been issues with funding things, that was the first item to get cut. So that's why a lot of the things that were supposed to be getting done at the school building
We're not.
never got done.
Right, but then you can't sit there and say, but we have the maintenance guys, jack of all trades, and that's why our contracted services numbers are.
That's true. But the only one other thing I want to bring up the difference for our guests in the audience. The difference between the school's budget and the town budget is not only does town meeting vote on everybody's raise, but they also vote on every line, so the accountant supply line, and you have to stay within that budget. And if there's a deficit, then you have to either fund it at town meeting, or you have to have a reserve fund. You can't go into a deficit, actually. If you're gonna get close to it, you need to do a reserve fund. But the school budgets have what they call line item autonomy, which means they can freely move things from one line item to the other, and town meeting has no go through your budget, you're not gonna do this, but let's say you went through your budget and you said, we're cutting 5 teachers, and you go out and you tell the world, we're cutting 5 teachers if we don't pass this override. And then the override that fails, and then you don't have to stick to what you said. And so they can kind of move everything around, where on the town side, you have to stick to whatever amount you budgeted. This has been a budget moment.
If you don't lay off those 5 teachers, you'll never be believed for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no.
So that aspect, we're gonna be looking at the elementary school to cut a lot. And your point is, it's gonna be staff.
There's no, look at it, there's no other place to cut.
And you know what, though, I think that if we're gonna have to do that.
Well, there's 500 here and 1,000 there, but no big number.
Right. And that's my point, is that,
That if we are gonna, then we're gonna have to make some tough choices, and I think that we should make a few of them and have them defend themselves. Like, whoever, like, I hate to keep picking on the behaviorist, but like, if that's, like, let's say we pick the behaviorist and, a paraprofessional in the kindergarten room and the art teacher, okay, like, just picking them out of thin air. Then I think that Joy, Kane, Brian, Marie, whomever, teachers, if they want to come speak to it, need to defend the position. And if they don't do a good enough job, then, because we don't know what these people do all day, right? Like, we don't know. We just see the numbers, like, and we see the kids doodles when they come home.
That's fine.
But like,
why do you feel bad about that?
I don't feel bad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm saying that we're a united front,
Yes.
and we have to defend each position and say, no, we really need the behaviors, no, we really need the art teacher, no, we really need the para, then we're gonna have to pick them. You know what I mean? I don't feel bad about it, I'm just saying that instead of, maybe it's a better idea, instead of us saying, it's gonna be the art teacher and a discussion, that we should pick a few of them and have them say.
So just on that aspect, what I would say is, you're gonna ask your administration, whatever number that we come up with, you're gonna have to ask them, can you give us cuts? Can you recommend cuts to us on this order of this amount of money? And let them go and make a presentation to you on what those items are.
But you should remember there's a formula, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong.
2 to 1. 2 to 1.
How to do this. For every 2 people you lay off a third to pay for.
Assuming obviously that people don't get employed again. If you would know, you can start off with that assumption. We do have some money banked, tying up for one person.
And I wouldn't count on a lot of people getting employment somewhere else, because of the fact that any open posting they posted has had a large number of people apply for it.
So, at the meeting on the 26th, I would put on the agenda philosophy on excess levy and discussion on raises.
And we're gonna have to attack this one. We're going to have to look at that sooner rather than later, because it's March, 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
I mean, we as a finance committee can't vote on any line in here until we have that discussion. It makes no sense, even level funded items.
Right, because you might have to go back and
Right.
cut level from the budget.
And then just when you're looking at the numbers, the cable TV access number is up $50,000, in case anybody asks, but the revenue is also up $50,000. So that's just a pass-through effect. So there's no increase in spending from the town aspect.
Overall picture.
Yeah, and that's the only large item thing that I can think of, just to make everyone aware of. For an expenditure, there's a matching revenue that goes specifically for that.
Unless there's a way you can go back and say, how do what contributed to the revenue? There's a way to keep the revenue percentage up, but not increase your cost by the same percent.
So I believe contractually, we are just a pass-through.
The cable is different. The cable is, it's money that really isn't hours. It's literally a pass-through. It comes into town from Comcast to go out to fund the network, the Area 58.
Because we have a contract with Comcast that says you shall deliver a certain percentage of your research service. And you say they
maybe
are
we recommend
50,
Yeah.
we get it with Comcast, it's going to you.
At 50.
I mean, what I've heard is we it's contractually, we're bound to
So, so
How many contracts with us?
And last year.
You know what else, you know what the other line,
Study line.
that's like
said,
super cheap, yeah, we can't do
anyway, well, Transportation.
it. Is our technology.
Cut that then.
Right, but
But you kind of need technology.
we're at,
Do we though?
but we're at the,
Do we?
but we're at the wall. What are you
That's the
gonna do?
argument. Do we really need it?
Are you gonna go back to paper MCAS?
That's not the point. Like, well, you know what then? You tell the state, we cannot financially support this decision and you're gonna have to bear with us. Tough shit.
Well, it's easy to say that.
We have that
Go
grant.
on.
Why are we buying Chromebooks and not upgrading our
I agree with that point, but it's hard to say tough shit if the state says, this is by 2020, you must take them online.
now you can, the thing about the state is you can always work with them to try to find a solution to issues. If you're gonna have to cut teachers so that you can do MCAS as school committee members, I would ask you to not cut the teachers and to do paper MCAS tests.
I agree with that.
And tell
Yeah,
the
no.
state.
And that's why I said I'd like to
I
hear
mean-
more.
Psst. Psst.
So I said I'd like to
I
get,
didn't know that. That's not the point. That's honestly how I feel. I feel like that we take a battle up with the legislature. We have a representative in the state house, and we say to him, listen, this is our battle on the local level.
well, that's why I know you enjoy email, but that was why I brought up the point of, can we survive on what we have for another year or two?
Of course we can, but they're gonna come back and argue with us.
So,
that they can't.
so that aspect is really for you
Not
guys.
here, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
No, we understand it's not going to be fun. And I keep saying, we've been going to do this
And-
for a long time.
Yes, the technology budget's up, but you know, it's not.
It's huge.
But you also have a capital item that's about
18.
but you need that because you,
Have no,
and if you don't do it now, but if you don't do it now, we're taking the ceilings down
It's their
to do
file
the
structure.
suppression, so this is the time to.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
So,
that part I get, we don't hold up my Chromebooks right now. And we don't do a 1-to-1.
so I-
From 2 to 6 grade.
I think that that discussion,
That's a grant.
But I
That's a grant.
the discussion of what goes on within your budget, I think you guys need to have that after the joint meeting.
Yeah, you're right, you're right.
Because you're throwing out there all these things that
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right.
I wouldn't get so worked up about
The
it.
philosophy may end up being, I don't think this is gonna happen.
Kids are all red.
I don't think this is gonna happen, but the philosophy could end up being that we leave only 100,000 in the levy, or that we, because there's other people that belong in this discussion. So,
No, but I think you're so factored by the value of it that the school department, school TV is 25% of the town budget. That's why you're saying here.
yeah, and we appreciate that you came, really.
So, if you wouldn't mind, as residents and as school committee members, reaching out to the Silver Lake members and just let them know that you plan on attending that meeting, we really appreciate it if they came
They're meeting though, that number,
with Plimpton.
But maybe our
I think
representative.
Silver Lake is meeting.
No,
The
they're
27th.
meeting They're meeting that Tuesday.
Oh,
Silver Lake's meeting the 27th.
Yeah.
I'd rather meet Monday.
The 26th, like Joy is meeting with the Plimpton delegation
Okay.
on the 26th. So Joy couldn't come, but
Yeah,
our
okay.
members should be able to come. Unless they,
Here,
Yeah, it would be here. And I would just keep in mind that what Kim just said, the philosophy and the number could change depending upon what the cuts are.
and maybe there's a revenue number that changes to it. Or maybe there's something else that comes in that may decrease it. We just had a decrease on health insurance. It's possible. It may not be a $400,000 decrease.
Well,
But
I mean, the only other large numbers
see each other in 2 more weeks, we'll have even more updated.
The health insurance numbers,
Because
56,000 less than last year. So, I mean, the retirement number's set. It's only up 16,000, and that's based on
That's a
the
miracle.
assessment. So that number will change next year. But,
Health insurance looks good, the line item had it.
Yeah, it's a decrease.
Decrease this past year.
but when you look through the lines, so when we look at what we have in here right now, you've got this building, when we talk about general government, is up 12,000. You have the police up 30, call it 40,000, but most of that is contractual increases. You have so we level funded the fire department, and maybe there's some room in that budget for some decreases based on who's in the department, not so much the staffing. You have 11,000 with emergency management being 9 of it, so maybe we don't do that.
Yeah, we just, that's something that we may not.
You got a $20,000 increase in government. No, that's a decrease. So that's fine. You've got $13,000. Sorry. So right now, the majority of the increase that we have in our line is $674,000, and that's the elementary school, vocational, special needs tuition, special needs transportation, Silver Lake assessment, and debt exclusion. The debt exclusion is you have to pay it, so that's a pass-through. But $674,000 is the issue. That's why we have an issue. I mean, it's really the other lines.
Highway wages.
You take out the request for the additional staff in highway and cemetery. Those are level funded. I mean, the issue is the school budget. And you have 390,000 for Prop 2.5, 100,000 for new growth. So that's 490. And you take 300,000, half the. I mean, basically, we have to spend $490,000, right? So that we leave $300,000 in excess because we're going up $300,000 for the debt items for the school and for the senior center. So you've got $490,000 to spend, and we're looking at schools go 675. I have one of those root beer balls.
Here, Candy. It's sweet.
It does make everything much better.
You
So I
should-
prefer the life
Karen
savings,
Davis,
but
she was on the finance committee, sometimes she would bring like a cake from the meat of mine, just to cheer us up.
I can call Karen and see if she's willing to do that.
Would it be possible to get these numbers, so I've heard the same, not same numbers, similar numbers now, that's what, I mean, I jotted them down, but would it be possible to get those prior to that meeting on the 26th, just a rough idea?
So we can give you the spreadsheet that Sandy does,
That'd be great.
but maybe just I'll write up an email with
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
like top level stuff.
I just don't think it's fair that, and I speak as somebody on the school committee, that school is sort of like how do I can't sit there and defend giving our staff a raise and not allowing the town to give their staff a raise. I think that's unfair, really.
Why did we think we could afford the
I know.
2% 3 months ago?
I'm with you.
That we-
So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because when you look at your steps and lanes, Did you know how much money you were at and how much money that percent increase was gonna cost
We
you?
were just told we could offer 2%.
So I would suggest to you strongly, next time you're negotiating a contract, you ask for what's the projected steps and lanes with the current contract we're in over the period,
No, she gave us that. She
And-
gave us those numbers.
and then what does the percentage increase do?
Forecasted.
Yeah.
The issue was we wanted so many other little things that we had to like, we had to do the dance, you know what I mean? And it's-
Understood.
It's complicated.
But
Definitely was.
Well, did we know that-
There's gonna be cost savings, but you see some of those things that showed up this year because of grandfather people that we were addressing, which is
but if you
give and take. which is
but-
give and take,
Yeah,
if you knew that
which is what we
we tried.
if you don't have special ed going up $200,000 and Silver Lake came in at the 150, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So really, it comes down to special ed increase in Silver Lake.
Well, that's why I think we need to,
Yeah, I agree. And in order to do that, we're gonna have another meeting.
yeah, I'd like to get at least some preliminary questions out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say to us as a parting gift?
Yeah, we're good now.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys
Thanks for having
coming to
Thanks
the
for
meeting.
putting up with me. This was awesome. Stop warning me that the camera was on.
I thought didn't I say Area
That
50?
guy setting it up.
Didn't I say?
Charlie said he's not here.
It's all back there.
Didn't we say Area 58's recording? And you,
I was
They
like,
got everything for one way.
Summer.
yeah, I know, because you know me, I have a potty mouth.
I'll call John and tell him he needs to edit the
no,
side.
you can't.
Somebody's gonna drop this YouTube link low.
Don't worry, you're gonna give us our best ratings yet.
Summer.
Get all fired.
Didn't you point out the
Yeah,
different
the-
microphones?
Yeah.
Well, but I
They
thought,
actually work.
and I know they were for TV, I thought they were for the minutes.
They have a green light on.
I can't see the green light. Green means go, that means I can just,
No, I do high-tech minutes now, so,
yeah, see, yeah.
yeah, high-tech.
Can't look at Lori in the back, they strike that.
I know.
So, do you have any ideas?
Or any other questions about the budget, or any other
Yeah.
department, or things that funded, or?
I think that not right now. I appreciate you putting forth everything you have so far. I would appreciate an email, kind of, there's a 30,000 foot view down.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to the start meeting on the 26th.
Okay. Bob? I don't have your pen back, so you have to wait till Friday.
Okay, about that, I brought notes. But you think it's gonna be 40, that we need to look at?
No, no.
Oh, now it's 100.
So, do you want me to tell you the number that I think you're looking at?
Yeah.
300.
All right. So, depending upon what happens with Silver Lake, 200,000.
Ooh,
200.
Come on.
40 kids per class.
Well, if we're looking at 300,000, if you're looking at leaving it 300,000, not doing the raise, you're looking at 200,000 because you've got to cut the 40 just to get down to the number that you're
No,
at.
but this is the philosophy. That's why it's really hard to say to somebody, we're gonna make our class size 40, potentially, because it's 5 teachers that you would cut, because you have to cut others for the
What-
unemployment. So you would have, so you're gonna say to parents or our community, instead of having 21 kids on average in a
You're gonna have
classroom,
26.
we're gonna have, do you think that's what it would be?
Well,
if you
20
cut 1 on 5, you're gonna have 5 in class. You know, it's big
So
old
that's not
station.
bad. You said 40, just give me.
Well, 200,000, that's a big number.
But I mean that's.
No.
I'm being realistic.
26 is okay. But if it was going to 40 students per year, I mean, per class, you'd have to go, well, I don't know how we leave things on the table and put ourselves through that.
But that's.
That's a whole
That's
different
what I
discussion.
mean. That's
Couldn't
what I
fit
mean.
40 in a room over there.
No, but even if you go down to 26, then you, I mean.
Exactly.
But that's a realistic number to be if that's the philosophy that we're going forward with, that's a realistic number to ask the school.
And how much would Silver Lake cut? They're 150.
If they get to the 150. But look, that's 150 with just thinking we were at a level funded budget.
Okay.
So if we're looking at Silver Lake cutting, we're looking at a $50,000 increase. And
Right. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
so
Well, I'm hoping that we can work cooperatively with the Silver Lake people, that they come in and they listen and they hear what we're saying and that they're willing to work as a team. So that-
but if the philosophy changes, I mean, we really need to have everybody in the room to see, will everybody support making cuts to staffing?
200 is the number, you gotta get rid of December, because the job's going to the floor, and you start talking about that magnitude of cuts.
But nobody thinks I'm wrong on that number if we're talking about a $400,000 cut, right?
I'm not arguing with the number.
Okay.
I'm not arguing with the number.
I'm not arguing with any numbers right now because I don't know enough. So that's why when we've been talking about numbers, I said, for our purpose,
Right.
we need to talk about numbers until,
Everybody's in the room. It's different.
well, this, not only, I need to spend a lot more time. I'm going to have to not be doing other things, which is fine. I mean, this is obviously one of the most important parts of what needs to get done, but I need to spend a lot more time with the budget on both ends, the revenue and expense side, and to be able to come back in this room and not say, I'm making these numbers up, because that's what I've been doing to some extent all along tonight. I mean, it made up with some evidence behind them, but to really know, to say, yeah, this is where we are, and these are the decisions you're gonna make. I'm not there, I need to be there in a couple of weeks to be able to say something that I can back up.
Understood. And if the choice is a 5-person cut, then maybe that is not supported.
Supported by.
Town meeting, yeah.
I'm just saying that we haven't had many years where we've proposed cuts,
Hasn't been-
and there hasn't been an active push back at town meeting by an active base of people that you possibly would see from a certain subsection of the voters in town.
I'll be the first person to say, last year, when we were talking about upgrades at town meeting, I said, if this passes, I'll leave my hat. It was unanimous.
How was the hat? Did it taste good?
It's awful. I guess my point though is that Kim makes a good point that the people, I don't say the demographic that seems to show up at town meetings, I think, speaking from my point of view, will be much more supportive of the cuts across the street.
Okay.
No, the other way around.
Think so?
Yeah, because your thumb is that the town, votes that show up for town meeting, as much as you have Facebook, the votes that show up at town meeting are people who are in the game, people who are employees, people who are families of employees or whatever. It doesn't mean that they're just there for the pay raises, but they're much more town government oriented, school government oriented than the Facebook crowd. This is nothing against Facebook crowd. They have their own rotation, their own priorities, and they have.
But they don't all show up to vote.
That's the point.
Yeah, and that's why-
Unlike the election, town meetings are far more willing to spend money, group of people. Now, it depends on what we're asking. At no time during this, for a number of years, have we talked about, we talked about small cuts here and here, and here and here, in the sense of, we got a budget and we got to keep within it, but we've not cut services for a long time. We didn't lay people off. We cut a few hours back in 09 and 10, but we didn't lay anybody off back in 09 and 10. And the school has been able to make ends meet because the school population's been going down, and you've been able to have teachers retire without running the teachers to the student ratio.
I think it's also worth pointing want the pendulum swinging the other way.
Right, absolutely.
Our lower class are very heavy compared to
Yes.
our classes.
Yeah, I mean, the trough's gonna be in 2025, for the college-bound kids, or not necessarily here in Silver Lake, but overall the demographics of the United States, the trough's coming in 2025. And the colleges and universities know that already, and they're gonna be desperate for finding students to fill those seats right now out of the college level. But you're right, just as there's a trough, there's gonna be another peak. The last peak was in '07. We're gonna see another, and we're gonna start seeing people already start coming, filtering in. How that bounces off among the three schools, so we'll likely be interested to see what happens, especially with the charter schools, kids
Yes,
leaving
leaving
in case.
large.
But that's also, sorry, I didn't get cut you off. That's also speaking to what makes me nervous in terms of the forecast of the budget.
And I would say that as long as we all come in, and for the most part, we go in every town meeting a united front, then the people who come to town meeting listen to our reasoning of what the budget should be. And you're right, Charlie, people are more engaged because they're either on a board or a committee, or so they sort of understand where we're coming from. So if we went to them and said, this is our deficit, this is why we need to make these cuts, I do think people would be more apt to support it.
And sorry, I'm speaking stereotypes here, I know, 20th century stereotypes. If mommy and daddy are fighting at a town meeting, things get interesting. If mommy and daddy agree when we're going to town meeting, things tend to be a bit calmer.
Yeah, so I think I think that's important that we're all going in united. I think it just makes big.
So if you do have a certain subsection of town meeting show up to vote that's not typically there,
That's good things there.
yes.
Yes. And we have seen that over the years.
Well, I think last spring, the folks having a great time with that.
And in general government, Gordon pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, we have had an increase of staff at the fire department, but it was offset by ambulance fees. And it was an argument that was made that the service and the ambulance response time was going to be better, and it has been the best.
And then the previous increase over there was in '05, '06, when we actually had an operational override
Yes.
to go to a 24/7 department.
Right.
Well, and I think just fundamentally, people are a lot less likely to strike down first responders.
Well, what was interesting was that the override only passed by 55-45. It got 95%, I'm sure, at the town meeting. That's why I need the folks who show up for the meeting are more likely to say yes than the folks who show up for an election. That's the difference. And that's what happened in Kingston with the library. So they barely got their 2/3 vote at town meeting for the library. They got 1/3 only to say yes and went to the ballot box.
But my point was that so general government hasn't really increased. So we've had retirements, we recognize the savings of that. And, we haven't really grown. And there was a request in this year, which I don't think that we're able to provide, of additional staff at highway, which we haven't had an increase in, but our roads have increased, but we haven't increased there and under the water department. And so that's not something we're gonna be able to do. So,
That just reminds me, so I'm totally off topic. Is it true that, I read somewhere, I think maybe on Halifax, it's a bad word on here, but is it true that the highway department cannot find contractors to fill the snow removal?
Yes.
Really?
that's very.
Pembroke's having the same issue as well.
I've seen Pembroke, but I just figured, well, I was not lost, but I wouldn't come across the town of Pembroke, like, roads are awful.
Yeah, it's really hard to.
That was terrible.
I was surprised by that.
Blow a tire.
We have a hard time, and I thought, when I saw Steve Haywood, the super surveyor, I said, I think you did a great job going on Facebook and explaining the reality, because most people wouldn't even think about, we only have so many full-timers that can plow with the day, and we have to rely on contractors that actually have their own jobs during the day. So
Right.
that puts us. in a
But the
bad-
other aspect of that is, if you're not calling the contractors out when the storms start, then they're not gonna sign up with you, and they're gonna go someplace else where they can get
Exactly.
more hours.
So at the last storm in Halifax, they were called out at 6:30 in the morning, and they were plowing for Kingston since 2 a.m. That's 4.5 extra hours, I couldn't have paid that on Kingston.
Yeah, I don't know if that happened or not. I'm just saying, I thought it was really great that he went on Facebook and sort of explained,
But that's
Well, that-
but that's sort of the situation for Halifax is that we weren't calling out
Oh, okay.
contractors at the same time we were calling out the town employees, so that if you can get 4 hours working for somebody else, that's 4 hours and that truck's making money. It's 4 hours you're making money. You're gonna go take that job versus something else where you know you're not getting called out on the regular basis.
And the other thing that was really, really ill-received was publicly saying, we're doing the best we can, our trucks are breaking down, after having lobbied for a large investment in the truck less than a year ago.
So that goes sort of to the capital plan
Right,
aspect,
and-
of which the before you got here is there's so
There's another truck.
so there's an argument that the issues at the highway department haven't been brought out over the last number of years, and all these pieces of equipment are failing. So you can go one way or the other with that argument. But if you've got somebody new in there now who's come in and said, look, all these trucks aren't passing inspection, why is that the case? What was happening before? I know the inspections
That's
changed.
a little insight. The inspection criteria has changed, and I was told that most of the town trucks would have an issue because of the inspection criteria change.
But there's two sides to that question.
Yep.
Is what was happening before and what's happening now, and what's the difference between the two?
That, I would think that, and this is just me spitballing here, that I would guess that the majority of people, or folks that are reading that are jumping to that conclusion, don't necessarily see or understand the difference between capital investments and maintenance.
Well, I think the average person just says, my tax bill to live in this
It just
town
cost me a
is
lot of money. Why is it
$5,500 a year. I have most people don't have kids in school, and they're looking at the bill going, what am I getting for this service?
Yep.
Which again goes back to the whole philosophy argument.
Yep.
And it's really 9 o'clock, and we talked about this for a while. Do we have anything else? Anybody else wants to say? We need to go through the agenda real quick.
Sorry.
It'll be real quick.
So you finished the list?
Yeah, if you guys had,
Go and never return.
thank you for coming.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Do we have any,
See you again.
have a fun trip.
Oh, thank you.
Do we have any mail?
See you later. You too.
Good, no mail. Reserve fund line? Okay, good. Meeting minutes can wait till next.
I didn't finish them anyway.
There we go.
Okay.
We just did the school budgets. Revenue discussion, Sandy will update us at the next meeting, because we'll have a little different. Anything for public participation? Do you mind just saying your name? So,
Yep, one to see.
okay, we'll just go around the table.
Oh, Melinda Tarsi.
Diane Roxton.
Gordon Andrews.
Bill McAvoy.
And Kendra Cole.
So we have two other members, Linda Braga and Mel Conroy, that aren't here tonight. So thank you for coming.
Yep.
And we do have an opening in case your Monday nights are free.
Wage and Personnel has 2 openings also. Just FYI.
I'm a financial analyst.
Oh, awesome.
Bills with me.
Why don't you sign my right here?
We could get Kim,
Number, email address.
we could just print that out.
Yeah. From the train station.
Kim, I might need to remind you about that other, thing that we have to sign once a year.
Oh, yeah. No, no. I'm not.
Except that the ankle bracelet is,
It doesn't let her leave the town. Okay, anything else? You got a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn 9:07.
I will second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.